Canada is the second largest country on Earth, yet approximately 80% of its population lives within 100 miles of the US border. The middle is a vast, thinly settled expanse. With only about 38 million people spread over more than 9 million square kilometers, the scale of emptiness isn't just striking, it's structural. But this isn't a simple story of climate or preference. The real reason is written in ancient rock, a geological barrier that has silently dictated where Canadians could build, farm, and live for centuries, forcing civilization to the edges. This map isn't an accident. It traces a constraint as old as the shield itself. So what exactly stands in the way beneath your feet? The invisible wall beneath is the Canadian Shield, a vast expanse of ancient bedrock that underlies a significant portion of the country and shapes where people can live. That population density map you see is essentially a geological map of the Shield. This formation spans a huge swath of Canada, a foundation that actively resists permanent settlement. It is not merely empty space. It is terrain engineered by deep time to stay that way. The Shield consists of ancient igneous and metamorphic rock. Successive waves of glaciation acted like a planetary scale scraper, stripping away deep, fertile soil. What remains is a rugged expanse of exposed bedrock, thin, acidic soils, and countless lakes. This geology created an immediate barrier to the most basic requirement for widespread settlement: agriculture. The soil here is nutrient-poor and rocky, a stark contrast to the rich plains found further south. Early European settlers learned this through direct experience. Their attempts to farm this land consistently failed, as crops could not establish roots in the shallow earth or survive the short growing season. Where food cannot be reliably grown, dense, lasting communities struggle to form. Beyond agriculture, the rock itself presents a monumental infrastructure challenge. Constructing anything, a road, a railway, a simple building, often requires blasting through solid bedrock. Costs climb fast on hard ground. Even basic utilities become major engineering projects. Installing water or sewer lines means drilling through meters of rock for every single connection. Add long distances, extreme cold, heating demands, and the price of moving goods, and the daily cost of living rises. The economic calculation rarely works. The immense upfront investment and ongoing maintenance can outweigh the benefits of building towns or cities here. This constraint created a natural selection process for habitation. The communities that took root were those built on resources valuable enough to justify the expense: mining towns following ore bodies. Many are isolated and temporary, tied to the life of a deposit rather than to a broader regional economy. Much of the north remains largely unexploited, except for resource sites and a few strategic facilities, because nothing else can carry the cost. So why do Canada's people gather in only a few corridors? Because outside this wall, there are places where the ground finally allows something different. Where the Shield steps back, other landscapes open up. So where could people actually build lives at scale? Where civilization could gain a foothold starts in the geological exceptions, the young, fertile corridors where the Shield's constraints fall away. The most significant of these is the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence lowlands. This region forms Canada's primary settlement corridor, precisely because it sits atop much younger sedimentary rock. Ancient seas laid down deep deposits of rich soil, ideal for farming and construction. The contrast with the Shield is stark. Here, soil depth is measured in meters, not centimeters. That single difference unlocked large-scale agriculture, something the Shield's rocky, acidic terrain makes prohibitively difficult. Geography and geology worked in concert. The Great Lakes act as an inland sea, moderating the climate. They absorb heat in the summer and radiate it slowly in the autumn, which extends the growing season and reduces winter severity. This microclimate, combined with deep fertile soil, established Canada's agricultural heartland. At the same time, the St. Lawrence River served as the natural artery to the world. Over time, it became Canada's main maritime shipping lane. The Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway, linking inland farms and factories to the Atlantic and global trade. That route anchored the locations of key ports and cities. Other exceptions exist, like southern Manitoba and the Peace River country, where the shield dips deep or gives way to younger plains. Together, they map onto two dense population belts, one stretching from just east of Detroit through southern Ontario and Quebec to the Maritimes, and another running from Winnipeg westward toward the base of the Rockies. Regions with similar climates on shield rock remained thinly settled. Buildable fertile ground was the essential ingredient. Once established, a self-reinforcing cycle took hold. The initial agricultural advantage drew people. Infrastructure, roads, railways, utilities, followed and then attracted more people, concentrating investment. Much of Ontario is still shield, which explains the gap between these two populated belts and why development hugs the corridors where sedimentary lowlands break the rock. Major cities like Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and Quebec City did not appear here by chance. The ground itself allowed dense, permanent settlement. So why do approximately 80% of Canadians live within 100 miles of the US border? They cluster where fertile soil, navigable waterways, and buildable terrain converge. Trace those corridors, and you can read the pattern that the next map makes unmistakable. Here's the frame that makes it clear. The map that tells both stories shows human geography tracing the edges of ancient rock. When you overlay Canada's population map with its geological map, the correlation is not just noticeable, it is nearly exact. Canada's major population centers do not extend into the shield. They cluster along the younger lowlands and plains. This is not a subtle pattern. It is a stark division between buildable and unbuildable land that has persisted for centuries, a line drawn by ancient rock. Modern engineering can overcome specific geological challenges. We can blast tunnels and build bridges, but it cannot change the fundamental economics of settling across thousands of square kilometers of bedrock. The cost of creating and maintaining infrastructure on that scale remains prohibitive. This reality is etched into the landscape itself, visible in the paths of our transportation networks. Highways and railways do not cut straight across the country. They curve, following river valleys and sedimentary corridors where construction was feasible. The Trans-Canada Highway demonstrates this clearly. Its route is not the shortest path. It is the most practical one, minimizing the distance spent crossing the most challenging terrain of the shield. The pattern of resource extraction further illustrates the point. In the shield, settlements appear as isolated points, industrial, mining, and hydrocarbon operations linked by thin corridors of road or rail. These are not the seeds of future cities. They are temporary outposts where people come to earn a good paycheck, but not to stay. Many are synonymous with temporary work and will empty as soon as the resources dry up. They form an archipelago of human activity, not a connected network that could support broader regional development. Here, empty is not just a headcount. It is terrain that resists the very patterns of settlement considered normal elsewhere. This geological constraint also explains a national posture. Canada. Canada appears immense on a map, but that scale can be an illusion. The usable belt is narrow, and the vast majority of people live very close to the US border. The result is a country that must keep a close relationship with its neighbor, not only because of shared history and trade, but because the geology concentrates population and infrastructure along that line. South of the border, Continuous plains let settlement spread inward from both coasts. In Canada, the shield holds the center, and the population hugs the margins. Seen this way, the emptiness of the interior takes on a different meaning and sets up the final point. So here's the takeaway. The emptiness is not a gap to be filled, but the enduring presence of an ancient geological reality. The Canadian Shield, with its volcanic bedrock and thin soil, still shapes where large populations can thrive. Harsh northern weather amplifies that constraint, making big cities across much of the interior and north difficult, though not impossible, just economically impractical at scale. This lens widens the frame. Population patterns are not accidents. They are often physical inevitabilities written in stone, and they ripple outward. The Shield influences Canada's trade routes, energy choices, and its tight relationship with the United States. Look under your own map. What does the ground explain?